Boom.
Boom. Here we are. Once again, welcome back, everyone, to another episode of the Ron and John Show. How you doing, brother?
Doing great, man. You know, the Ron and John Show, you know what we're all about, brother. We're known coast to coast like butter and toast. We can make 𝗟𝗍 surrender or die, or make the nerdiest guy look kind of fly. We can drink like we've been singing all night long, or sing like we've been drinking all night long. So if you're looking for a good time, don't you delay. Tune into the Ron and John Show, because me and this Ranger here, we lead the way. Boom.
All the way we do, brother.
How you been, man?
You know, I'm gonna have to upgrade my shit over here because I love my hatchet.
Well,
you call it
which direction you want to go, brother?
You just went, wow. I feel like you remember Harlem Nights?
Oh yeah.
Remember when they're out there and they got the machine guns, they're going at each other and stuff like that, and then Eddie Murphy's guy comes out and he goes, pow, pow. So put that little shit away. That's how I feel when you pull your stuff out. Anyway, brother, I know it's been an awesome week. We've had an interesting week. We shared a good day together.
Yeah. So, you know, one of the things that is an unwritten rule in the United States military and with veterans everywhere is that if you leave your shit unsecured, you are subject to whatever actions the person that finds it does to it.
Whatever.
And also, it's an unwritten rule, and you know this, Ranger, that if you pass out in the midst of friends or comrades, you are subject to whatever actions they might do with a marker. So, you know,
facts.
You remember our last live show at Bob Brewery when we had Breck Time broadcast. We had Sergeant Major Breckenridge on. I left my notebook there. And to the audience out there, you know, I left my notebook out there, and when I got it back from my Ranger buddy here, and there was a few other Rangers around him, hey, dude, one of our bosses, Mike Villano, was with you. And this is how I got it back, folks. All right? This is the kind of graffiti that they put on it, all right? You know, I mean, everybody knows that, okay?
Yes. Everybody knows.
Having said that, though, revenge is a very, very, very dangerous way of doing business, and it's best served cold. And I didn't get you, but one of my proxies, one of my allies got you. So tell us what happened to you, brother.
Oh, man. Actually, I have a picture of it. I could actually just show it.
Yeah, please do, man.
Here, if I could put it on there. So this is what happens when you pass out.
What do you got growing out of your shorts there, dude?
It's a Sharpie. It's and a number. And yeah, that's.
I just thought you had been taking some male enhancement thing there.
well, you know, you got your no hormone stuff in today. Maybe, you know,
I know, man. I got my probiotics and everything, man. I am fighting Father Time, and I found the fountain of youth to stay PME hard, brother.
I'm gonna have to get PME hard with you. Now, here's what's interesting about that photo is that the person who took that photo, I asked, because I was like, where the hell did I get this number from? I'm asking around. I'm asking Pete and Dustin and who the hell is Jen? And then this person I asked, I said, who is this person? They said, no idea. Why don't you just call and find out? So, just that would have been interesting. Yeah, but your number is on my arm. No idea what you're talking about, sir. Stop harassing. Anyway.
Hey, so, you know, the other thing I've been doing the past week is a lot of podcasts and leader seminars. So, you know, I was on the World's Greatest Leader podcast that should be airing here on Facebook in a couple weeks. Veterans Be Real, another podcast that should be coming in. But I will tell you, the other day I had a great time doing a leader seminar with the troops stationed in Combined Joint Task Force 1 of Africa. We're talking about troops that are in Djibouti, Somalia, Kenya, Ethiopia, and areas around that. And it was just a great leader seminar. And it allowed me to continue to talk about the knowledge, skills, and attributes that leaders need, which I think, as we know, is very important, and which, you know, really ties into what we're doing tonight and the show we have tonight.
Yeah, absolutely, brother. And so you mean on that topic and what you're talking about, who do we have this week?
Yeah, so, you know, we are back to doing our last collaboration with other video podcast, webinar kind of things. And tonight we have Army Lieutenant Colonel Josh Powers. He's an infantry officer, and he just PCS'd from Hawaii to Fort Benning, Georgia, which I know you'll kind of, as our National Director of Education that, takes care of folks PCSing and potentially buying homes, you'll dig into that. Yep. And now he works for the Soldier Lethality cross-functional team at Benning. But I know this guy very well. I first met him in 2011, 12-ish, and he was the aide-de-camp for my boss, General Bob Brown. And when I was the first Corps Sergeant Major here. And we've known each other for years, and he is just a stud. He served from platoon level. Look at, we're bringing him out already.
There he is.
From platoon level all the way up to Army Service Component Command as a staff future planner. He's got 3 combat tours of duty, 2 to Iraq, 1 to Afghanistan. He's a graduate of Virginia Military Institute, class of 04, and he's got a bachelor's degree. He also graduated from the well-known School of Advanced Military Studies, and where he got his master's degree in military art and science. And he's the founder and host of the Field Grade Leader, and he's also the founder of the Agile Leader, which is a new project focused on developing leaders. He's married, and he's got 2 wonderful children. Josh, welcome to the show, brother.
Welcome,
Josh. What's up, John Wayne Troxel? What's up, Ron? How you guys doing?
Doing great, man.
Oh, good, man.
Awesome.
Hey, we were just talking a little bit about, you probably heard us talking about, if you leave something unsecured in a military context, you're the victim of whatever the people that find it choose to do. Or if you pass out on your buddies in a party, in the barracks, dormitories or whatever, or at a house, that you're subject to whatever they want to do with the Sharpie. So just to knock it out, have you ever been a victim of something like that?
Yeah, absolutely. And I just retired said piece of equipment. I had when we switched over to the multicam a couple years back, brand new patrol cap. I was either a Battalion XO or Brigade S3, somewhere in there. And my good buddy, Ryan Bulger, found my unsecured patrol cap. We were at a something up there at Fort Lewis, actually.
Yeah,
and so
yeah.
He wrote "I heart Ryan Bulger" right inside of my hat, in a nice marker. And so I could have scratched it out. I could have pulled the tag out. I left it, and it was there for years and years and years. And that patrol cap got all kinds of old and nasty, but it served as memory because I do love Ryan Bulger. And I don't know if he's on, but if he was, I would tell him that. And so I just left it right there. And every once in a while, somebody would look in and say, "Who's Ryan Bulger?" And I'd tell him. But I retired that PC, and I was sad, and I shot him a picture of it. But it was goofy, but it was a good memory too.
Awesome.
Oh man, Ryan Bulger, awesome.
Mm-hmm. Yep, I love him.
At least it wasn't painted on your face.
This is true. It's a good point.
Hey, so I'll go ahead and start off here. So we brought you on tonight because of what you've done with the Field Grade Leader and the Agile Leader, your new project here. And as a matter of fact, you had me as a guest on your Field Grade Leader. So tell us how you came about to say, I want to do this. And it's a leader development forum that is just phenomenal. And tell us what your vision was and where you think you're taking this. And then tell us a little bit about the Agile Leader, because the Field Grade Leader's got 12,000 followers on Facebook right now. Agile Leader's got almost 6,500 on Twitter. So they're very popular forums. So tell us your vision and where you're going with it.
Yeah, so it all started back there at Fort Lewis. I was just finishing up as a brigade operations officer for 2nd Stryker Brigade out there. And as I came out of that job, terrible job, really, really hard, rewarding and, an important job, but it is not a fun job at all. Yeah. And I came out and I felt like that I had done okay, but I had learned so many lessons through just messing stuff up, trial and error, messing it up, etc. And so I thought that was important experience. And then also I had an awesome opportunity there to take part in mentorship. So inside of the 3 shop, inside of the Battalion S3 shop, when I was down there, I had lieutenants, captains, NCOs that were waiting to go down into other jobs, waiting to be platoon leaders, waiting to be company commanders. And I remember like my favorite time with those guys was on a Friday afternoon. You know, it's like 5:30 and we're getting ready to rock out. Everybody come into the office and we pop a couple beers and they would talk and we would talk to each other about, you know, whatever, about the profession, about how to survive with your marriage, how to, you know, whatever, how to be a company commander, how to be a staff officer, or why it means anything. And I missed that. So as I was PCSing out of Lewis and headed off to Sam's out at Fort Leavenworth, I was like, you know, I should capture some of this. And I wrote an article. I made a Medium page with 0 followers, and I just kind of sent this article out into the world. And then, you know, a couple of weeks, you know, I write another article. I send this one out into the world, and I'm sitting in my classroom in Sam's, and one of my buddies is like, "Hey, man, check this out." And sure enough, the Doctrine Man, who's a major celebrity in the context of social media and military social media, had shared one of these articles. I don't know where he got it from, but that was kind of the start. And from there, I just kept writing little by little. And then the forum started to grow. So at the beginning, it was an opportunity for me just to share my thoughts and share my ideas. And really quickly, we got into kind of the live content space. We did a couple of these like blended leader professional development sessions at Leavenworth. Had some senior captains, junior majors that were there in one of the courses in CGSC. The Command General Staff College, and we would come together, we'd do an LPD and we'd do it live, right? We'd broadcast it live on Facebook, and we started to get momentum there. And I'm like, well, that's neat. You know, that's kind of different. Started to share, we started to pull up a little bit of flavor from pulling the business world in, pulling in some of the organizational leadership stuff from Inc. and Forbes and these other forums. And I started to just share that direct, and the field grade leader evolved, which was really neat. And then as it grew, folks started to come in and say, "Hey, I want to write something for you." And that's when I think it really started to take off. And that's when the vision really came together, where we could have a place where guys like me could share experience from things that they had messed up. Guys and gals that were coming into jobs could ask questions and kind of interact and iterate and learn together, and for it to be a community. And I think that's what the field grade leader has become. It's become a community where folks can interact, ask questions, attend virtual professional development sessions, and it's been super awesome. So truth in lending, though, I am not actively running the field grade leader anymore. I passed the baton of that off over to a guy named Billy, who's out at Fort Stewart, who's a new major out there, who's just crushing it. And so he's taking that vision and really continuing to run with it and to keep it going in the right direction.
Wow. You know, 2 things come to mind there. I'll start with the second one is that, you know, it's, you know, in leadership, you know, we're talking about the field grade leader, and, you know, subliminally what I kind of picked up on there is, you know, that handoff that you said, where you're empowering someone else to take over, run with it, use their ideas, their motivation, their passion to grow it as they see it. And essentially what you've done is you groomed a leader to take your place, right? However, how much grooming that was, or maybe it was just pure passion, but you knew that this person was going to be able to take this and let the reins go for them to continue to do that, which is also number one as a leader, because you should be training your replacement, right? And the next person to be better than you. And the other part of my question now is that, you know, we've had other guests on before, mainly on the NCO side, that have similar groups. And within those groups, there are, you know, officers in there that are also trying to learn and kind of understand. Do you see that you have a mixed group in the field grade leader as well? Is that, or is it only exclusively to officers?
No, it's open to anyone, and so it's probably, I would guess, it's primarily like senior company grade officers and junior field grade officers, but we've got everybody. One of the coolest sessions that we ran, we did not a writing contest, but just a call for articles. And it all came around in a Twitter, a tweet that someone put together that said, hey, I wish we had talked to more NCOs while we were in the Command and General Staff College getting ready to be, S3s and XOs. We didn't really have as much of an opportunity to learn from senior staff non-commissioned officers. And I'm like, that's interesting. So I pulled the tweet and I said, hey, NCOs of the world, what do you got? Write something. And we had some very, very good senior NCOs write their advice to these young field grade officers going back out. So I think that is definitely a neat flavor. We get that flavor in there. We've got warrant officers that are in the group. We've got junior enlisted folks. We've got active reserve. And then we even have folks that are civilians that are not connected to the military in any way, shape, or form, that are just interested in how we function it. And the shtick of field grade leader, Ron, going back to your original discussion of empowering others, et cetera, and that's like what a field grade officer does, right? Field grade officers are not usually direct doers of anything. And that's one of the hardest pieces of transition, is from this direct leadership approach. So I'm a platoon leader, I'm a direct leader. I'm going to go out with my guys and my gals onto the objective, and I'm going to do my job. Company commander, same thing. But then you get into this weird position when you transition to be a field grade officer, where it is an indirect leadership. You're directly leading folks that are on your teams, on your staff, whatever, but you don't see the results of what you're doing. So it's a cognitive shift that's hard, because you're like, I'm not doing anything. I sit in the damn office all day. I make PowerPoint slides, and it's terrible. And it doesn't, there's no impact out there on the force. And it's really hard to appreciate the value of what you do and the value of what you influence. So that's kind of an important part of the identity of being a field grade officer, is being able to find value, to take ownership, even in this weird and intangible, indirect environment, and then to continue to do good work. And I always used to tell folks, and I'll say it to you guys, because I think you'll both appreciate this. You're making this product, you're doing a PowerPoint presentation, you're writing an op order, nobody's ever going to read it. But somewhere out there is a staff sergeant that is trying to load human beings and equipment on a vehicle in the rain. And he needs you to provide a framework, however intangible it is. He is on the other end of that. And that's who you're supporting,
Mm-hmm.
So it's interesting that you say that, because, when I was the SEAC, and I would sit in, now we're talking at the very strategic level. We are preparing products. The Joint Staff is preparing products for the Chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff and Secretary of Defense to give best military advice to the Commander-in-Chief. And when I would talk to these staff officers that were working in there, who, like you, were, a lot of combat experience and everything, and now they got to wear their dress Class Bs every day and write orders and everything. And I said, think of this: if you're working for a desk in AFRICOM or you're in Indo-PACOM, think about what you just said. Somewhere, some young leader is going to have to execute this plan that is generating from up here, going to come down through the combatant command to the service component command, and eventually will end at the tactical level. And if it doesn't make sense to you at this level, guess what you've just done? All the risk would be incurred by those tactical level leaders. So, yeah. Hey, so tell us about this agile leader thing. This is something new, I take it. Although, you've got quite a following with it, with 6,000 plus followers on Twitter. So tell us about it.
Yeah, so the Agile Leader is a new venture that I'm just kind of getting out there and getting going, and it's fun. People are like, "What's Agile Leader?" And I'm like, "I don't know yet. We're going to figure that out in a little while here." So really, with what I'm trying to do there is to go to a space where I can write, I can engage, and really help folks that are trying to learn about leadership in complexity. And you look at complexity, and the before I went to SAMS, I didn't know what complexity was. So the 10-cent tour it's where there's different stuff that's occurring in the environment. You can't tell the relationships between them. And in COVID is a perfect example. I don't think any of us would have guessed 8 months ago that we would be, a lot of the things in the world that are occurring now would be occurring, and then translating that to organizational leadership, distributed meetings, distributed workplace, inability to gather, et cetera. A lot of folks, as I've watched this transition occur, are just they're struggling, they're challenged, and they're failing to try to replicate what they've done in the past. And I think that's what Agile leadership is all about, is taking things that are out of your control and harnessing the opportunities in the environment to succeed, right? So COVID, it's certainly not a good thing. It's certainly a bunch of bad stuff that's going on and weird competing layers on top of it. But it is an opportunity inside of all organizations to streamline your systems. So that training meeting that you used to have, or that boardroom meeting that you used to have that was 3 hours long and everyone hated, it's an opportunity to streamline that and make it a more effective process if you have the mindset to do it. That's kind of what Agile leadership is all about, in my opinion.
Gotcha. So it's I think that's phenomenal, because not a lot of people are thinking about it in that way. That went into an entirely different direction than what I thought it was going to be. But really, what it comes down to is it's like we say, what you going to do, PL? Like, what are you going to do with this information, and what are you going to do with what you've been taught to this point, to have that wherewithal to maneuver, right? Just like on the battlefield or anything else, whether that be on or off the battlefield, in transition or not in transition. I mean, we're going to be facing these different obstacles, and how agile are we able to adapt, overcome, and still continue to survive and thrive, right? I mean, that's kind of what I picked up off of that. Was that just me?
Yeah, no, that's exactly it, Ron. And I think that there's a bit of this that guys like us forget, guys and gals forget, that have experiences. There's this whole layer of people in the military now, and then outside the military in the civilian world, who I also want to talk to, that don't have that same experience. I think that Agile leadership in the military, as in combat especially, you have to learn it. And I recall back to my first tour in Iraq as a platoon leader, the first time that I was in contact, and I distinctly remember the voices over the radio on the other end saying, "What do we do, sir?" They're doing the right things. They're return fire, seek cover, base fire, et cetera. All of those standards that we all learn, but they're looking to their leadership to decide what you're going to do. And oh, by the way, in chaos and complexity, there's no right answer. There isn't a singular right answer to that. There are only better circumstances, positions of relative advantage. So I've been lucky to have rep after rep after rep of learning, and then in truthfully failing, when lives are on the line. And that is a treasure, is traumatic, is all these things that are combined that have shaped my leadership approach. And I think it's just wrong if I'm not taking those things and helping out other people who aren't in the same circumstances.
Yeah, I got to ask your opinion here, Josh. Based on kind of what you're talking about, leadership, presence and things like that. So I got into I won't call it a debate, or I wouldn't even call it an argument, just a discussion with a retired NBA superstar who I did a USO tour with, and it was about how the United States is seen, and he was kind of referring to the restrictions because of COVID-19 on Americans being able to go to other nations like Europe and stuff like that. And I countered with the presence we have in the military around the world, where over 160 of the 196 countries we have troops in, whether it's on the ground, in the air, or at sea. And we are there with our 7 mutual defense treaties, or through special measures agreements, or because of alliances and partnerships. You just left U.S. Army Pacific. So how engaged through everything are we in terms of continuing to get after our mutual defense treaties in the Pacific, and continuing to do things to build readiness, build partnerships, and deter any kind of aggression?
Yeah, I mean, I think the bumper sticker is we're still there, we're still committed, and we're still touching the right engagement, still in with the right people. Yeah. But again, back to this thought of agility, the conditions have changed, right? It's not the same as it was last year. The engagements aren't the same, and the interactions aren't quite the same. So we've got to be smart And we've got to continue to listen. And I think this is another piece that ties into agility is the solution set that you have in your head that you think is right may not be the right one. And having those, those folks that are engaged, that are plugged in, that are talking to partners. And I just talked this the other night, talking to partners, communication, right? Two-way street. Part of talking and part of communicating is listening and understanding what is at play.
Like my motivation Monday.
Yeah. Yes, exactly. When your back is singing to you because you're flipping that tire again. Exactly. But the other thing in there, and this goes back to that complexity piece, is that what your partners or what your clients or what your soldiers or whatever needs, it changes over time. It's not the same thing. What worked yesterday won't necessarily work today. So being able to constantly listen and adjust and adapt is crucial in the Pacific, is crucial in military operations, is crucial pretty much everywhere where human beings are involved.
The last thing on that, do our Pacific partners want us there, and do they want to partner with us?
So watch this. I'm going to throw my I've been public affairs formally trained in public affairs. So watch this. Ready for it? In my experience and in my opinion, in the partners that I've interacted with in the Pacific, which is probably in the ballpark of 10 or 12 nations, absolutely yes.
Good. Ron.
I love that. I'm going to have to change my structure from deny, counter to that one. So I have a question, because the theme that continues to go on with how you started the field grade leader and the agile leader is in writing articles in a writing style. Like, where did that come from for you? Because it sounds like, where you're the meat and potatoes and to launch these things come from.
I think so. Here, I'll tell you, I'm going to shoot you straight on this one, Ron. I'm going to tell you the true story. So I always wanted to do the video side of stuff. But I was like, I don't know what that means. And at that point, there really wasn't anybody doing military leadership video live, it didn't exist. So I was scared. So I didn't do that. And so I'm like, okay, I'm going to write instead. Now, here's the other flip side of this. I am a horrible writer. I do not enjoy it. I do not think it is fun. I have a Georgia public school education, and I barely graduated from the Virginia Military Institute with a very low GPA. So I can't even write that well, but I was like, I gotta work on this. And so I kept kind of going through it. Now, funny, when I was standing the whole thing up, I had another, we talked earlier about Dr. Steve Leonard out there who kind of helped out. I also had the luck of running into a guy named Drew Stedman. Drew runs the military leader. And so he helped me get my website up and helped me get things running. I was like, hey, I want to do this live stuff, but nobody's doing it. And I'm scared. And he's like, don't be a wimp. And immediately we started doing the live stuff. But that's really where I got into the writing piece. However, even as terrible as I am at it, I would encourage folks to give it a shot, to write, to have the time and the clarity to look at what you're trying to say, to form that opinion, and then to communicate that in writing, because it will make you better at literally everything. And doing it for the blog, it's made me a better communicator verbally. It's made me a better communicator when I send emails and when I make PowerPoint slides, because it just makes you think a little bit more detailed. So if you're out there and you're like, well, I'm a crappy writer, so am I, just give it a shot and put something together, even if you just tuck it away in a drawer, it's worthwhile. Yeah. And also, so we're talking about the recent move that you made, right? And which means, just pretty much for everybody now, it's PCS season, right? Right.
Release the, open the gates and release the hounds. What's that looking like for you these days? What's PCSing in a quarantined COVID environment look like?
It's different than anything I've ever experienced, and I've been around the military for at least a short while. And there are so many things that are changed or changing or likely to change, unclear, guidance or regulations. And again, you know, and I think I'm gonna steal John Wayne Troxell's thunder ever so slightly, but there's a perspective here. And you see a lot of folks that will do this on social media or will do it in other forms where they're just like, well, this sucks and it's dumb, and you know, the military doesn't know what they're doing, and I'm not sure on the guidance. And that's kind of that victim mindset. And then on the flip side, there's the ability just to take the things that you can control, right, and control those, to kind of roll with the punches of the things that you can't control unless they're too funky or too weird, and you gotta throw a flag on them. But it's challenging. We're as to quarantine or no quarantine, and restrictions of movement and flying, and we just got a notice the other day that it looks like our household goods are extended by another 14 days. But it's all good. The things that I can control my disposition. I can control going out with my family into the living room and playing a game, reading books together. All those things are things that I can control, and having a good attitude for the kids. So that's what I'm going to focus on, and not that it might take a couple more days for our stuff to get here. Yeah.
I never thought that they'd put all your gear in quarantine for 14 days as well, but hey, we are.
You got to keep that at sea. You never know if it's got something funky on it.
Hey, so, just to add on what you said there, I think whatever we do in life or whatever we do in the military, it's what would we like to do as a family, or even in the military, what would we like to do? What can we do based off of the personnel we have available, the resources we have available? What is the delta in there? Determine the risk involved, and then, use that prudent risk to go out and do what we want to do in life, or what we can do in life, or we can do in the military. And as we know, the military may not be live training, it might be virtual, constructive, or gaming as well, but I think if we focus that, we'll be much better off. So one of the phrases that I use all the time is practice championism and not victimism. And you were kind of describing that right there. What advice would you have for leaders out there that are, every leader in the military or in business has to be a problem solver? And so what advice would you have for leaders on how to champion problems to get the solutions and not be a victim of that problem and just sit around and piss and moan about it? What advice would you have?
No. So I think I'd give two pieces of advice. So the first one, and this ties back, and you can apply it over to the COVID PCS thing, right? Is don't go with the emotional response, right? And this has its roots. This recommendation has its roots in Stoicism, which I read about a little bit. That tells you that when something happens, you get a crappy project at work, or something that you think doesn't make sense, or whatever, or you're sitting in your house that's empty, and they say your household goods is going to be another 14 days or whatever. The emotional response is, I'm mad, this is stupid, whatever it may be, this sucks. And that's not the right place to be, right? So you kind of let that one pass. And then, so that's one, don't go with the emotional response. And then number two is to unpack problems, right? A lot of times I see folks, especially junior folks that are getting into problem solving, that they look at it and they're like, it's just a huge mess. It doesn't make sense. It's a knot, this massive knot that I can't untie. And it's like, well, okay, maybe so, but let's take a minute and let's unpack it. Let's unpack the variables, and let's look at the pieces of this problem. Let's look at when we need to solve those problems over time. And then let's focus on the things that we can actually change, adjust, impact, influence, whatever, versus just looking at the entirety of the problem and kind of quitting on it. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I think you've been reading 𝗏𝗃𝗃𝗧, huh? A little bit, or maybe a little bit from Admiral Stockdale, the philosophical thoughts of a fighter pilot and everything about stoicism. No, great stuff. Ron, over to you.
Yeah, I mean, what do you see it going? I mean, obviously you handed off the field grade leader. You're kind of working with the agile leader now. Where do you see both of those going? The other one is field grade. Is that kind of a life of its own? Do you still have some sort of guidance with that? And where do you see agile going?
Yeah, so back to what you said earlier on, I think that the field grade leader is going to continue to go places and be fresh and new, because guys like Billy, and other folks on the team, Heather, who's been with the team for a long time, have these ideas, and letting those folks go and broadly, know what the focus is. It's a community that helps with leadership. Off you go. I think that makes it work, right? And so I'm still tied in with those with the team. And I'm just excited to see where it goes because of their creativity and not being stifled by my creativity. For Agile Leader, I don't know. It's going to be interesting here for a little bit. I'm trying to focus more. I think where I got with Field Grade Leader was there was enough overhead that I was focused on managing, and I couldn't write quite as much as I'd like to. So this is allowing me to write a little bit more. I would like to spend a little bit more of my time, my free time, writing and thinking and getting that stuff back out. And if anybody out there reads the Agile Leader stuff, it's a little bit more squishy. It's not like when I was writing for Field Grade Leader, it's like, here is like 5 tips and tricks to win an MDMP, or here's how to run a meeting that doesn't suck. And Agile Leader is more about like, here is here are some bigger, some deeper thoughts. So that's where I'd like to spend my time for the next year or two, is thinking a little bit more, writing a little bit more deeply, and to kind of see where that leads me.
Nice.
Awesome.
Looks like we got, guess who popped up, John?
𝗪𝗏𝗪𝗏 is here. The guy that's always on our show, Ed Sullivan.
Ed Sullivan. So he says, I had a question for John and Lieutenant Colonel Powers. Do you believe that cheaters and liars are in any way connected to professional 𝗟𝗪𝗓s and victims? And what would you say to anyone who believes that the way to solve a problem or to get ahead is to cut corners? And finally, what can leaders do to prevent those under them from becoming cheaters or liars?
Go ahead, Josh.
So I'll go to the middle part of the question there on the cutting corners piece. I think that in my experience and from what I've seen, as an organizational leader, like there are always corners that you can cut. But from the comment there in the context of liars and cheaters, like lying and cheating, like just doesn't work. It may work once. It may, cutting a huge corner may work for you 1 or 2 times, but eventually that's going to come back around. And most importantly, in that context, is that it will impact and tarnish your professional reputation. And that's all you got. At the end of the day, when you walk out and you change jobs, you go to a new place, if your reputation is tarnished, like that's going to follow you. The other piece, so how do you deal with that in your organization? I'd say, and this one's, and he's probably going to, I just accidentally summoned the personal assistant on my computer, whose name will not be mentioned, but I'm sorry about that. She was talking to me. So he's probably going to come back and say that Ed's going to say, or that this was that I'm taking an easy way out. It's not always as easy as someone on your staff or in your organization or whatever being like, that dude's a liar, that gal's an idiot, whatever it is. A lot of times you got to approach those situations like going into it to gain perspective. Because there may be more, there may be information that you're not privy to, or that you don't understand, that you may need to gain context on. So you got to go in, and think a little bit, rather than just walk in and be like, you're a liar and you're fired. Off you go.
Mm-hmm. What do you got there, John?
If I had to add on to that, Ed, 2 things make up effective teams, and it's chemistry and culture. Chemistry is developed through training, obviously education is involved in everything, but mainly training and certification, whether it's at the individual, fire team, squad, platoon, whatever it is. Culture is created by leaders. And in the culture that the leaders create around the chemistry they have, cheaters and liars won't be able to survive in there. Do I think those kind of folks, the professional 𝗟𝗪𝗓s and the victims and everything, will try to be out there? But if the leader creates the culture that, hey, suck it up, buttercup, be on your own 2 feet just like everybody else and get after this, mission. Okay, don't tell me that you can't run or whatever. So the chemistry developed through training and the culture created through leadership, I think you'll weed out any of those professional 𝗟𝗏𝗡s, those victims, and certainly any cheaters or liars.
Yeah, I like it. And then, mixing it up a little bit, as we always do here in the Ron and John show, Josh, we keep it real. That's what the audience loves. We keep it real. So, I always like to bring up on the other part of this, which is transition, right? Which is the ugly word that a lot of people don't like to face, but whether you like it or not, it's coming, right? And that's that transition out of the military, whether that be retirement or otherwise. In the field grade leader and in the agile leader, where I could see this kind of growing into its style of its own. But is there anything as far as conversation, preparedness, or any of that as far as transition? Because one of the things that I've been able to experience in working with a lot of active duty service members in that journey to civilian life is it doesn't matter if you're an E6, it doesn't matter if you're a full bird. It doesn't matter ranks or structures. I mean, that concern, I won't say it's always a fear, but that concern is there. I've seen it in folks' eyes where, you have a hardened 18 Delta where, shit can't touch them. And then all of a sudden they're figuring out really quick that applying for jobs, they're not getting the interviews that they wanted, or when they get the interviews, they're not getting the follow-ups and so on. What are you all working toward to prepare these leaders for the future of their transition?
Yeah, that's a great question, and it's a topic that I haven't seen a lot of discussion kind of as I've gone through my career. And I'd say watching, now to the point, I'm, at a handful of years in the Army and watching guys that are getting into the transition space. The hardest part, this is going to be squishy again. Sorry if there are folks in the audience that don't like it, but I think a lot of what is an interesting challenge is this identity thing, right? So you have folks that have been in the Army the entirety of their adult lives, and their identity is, I am a infantry officer, I am a sergeant major, I am a, fill in the blank thing. That's who they are, and that's who they've always been. And unfortunately, you see folks that transition out of the military after a long time of service, and they just turn around and either they don't succeed, they're not happy, and you got guys and gals that just die. Which is tragic, and I think a bit of that is tied to this identity piece. So one of the things that I focus on a lot in writing and discussion is this aspect, again, and it's squishy, and I'm sorry, I'm a squishy dude. I cry over a good beer commercial sometimes. Is balance, right? So it's having a balanced life where that there is more to your identity than just your job title, and having that as an understanding when you transition out of the military that aspect of you doesn't change. Your family, your personal beliefs, your personal interests, the things that are facets of your life, they're still there for you on the flip side. Does that make sense?
No, it absolutely makes sense. And I'll tell you, man, number one, I've always been told this, never apologize for your passion, man. Squishy or whatnot. And I say that because, man, no shit, man. There's not enough. I mean, as weird as that word is, squishiness, right? There's not enough of that getting in touch with who the hell you are. There's not enough of that. Shit. I remember when my buddy Matt Wilson passed away from suicide. Literally up until maybe even 5 months ago, every class that I'd go to as I was driving to get tacos or something, I'd well up, I'd cry, I'd let that shit out, and then go and get about my day. But it allowed me to for those moments to tap into that. And for me, it was like, it showed that I cared. I'd rather have that than not, be able to be in touch with that. And I think that the more that we talk about that, as men, and we're not talking about like, Chaz and skinny jeans and shit. We're talking about grown ass men right here that are alpha leaders that you know what, it's okay to be in touch with who I am and that warrior, because that warrior sometimes has to take that armor off, you know, and deal and heal those wounds before we put that shit back on and get back after it and fight another day. So no, I number one, just appreciate you for being present, vulnerable, and putting that out there as a leader and saying like, hey, you know, this is where I am, this is what's happened. Because I bet 10 years ago, or maybe pre deployment, that probably was a different Josh Powers compared to where you are and where you're going. Just like the same with John Wayne Troxell, which I know John's got chopping at the bit there to jump in on that one.
No, I was gonna. Hey, Victoria, can you bring up Drew Keller's? Yeah, go ahead, Ron.
Yeah, so we got something from Drew here. It says, how important is leading by example in our military, and what is each of your personal illustrations for leading by example? I'll give that to you, Josh, to start it off.
Hey,
yeah,
Josh.
no, I think it's hugely important. And I, you know, it's one of those things that you just can't get past. And for me, leading by example is doing what you say and saying what you do as well, right? So it's making those this might be a John Wayne Troxell, I don't know where I got it from, but making the audio and the video match. And so that's there. I think that it is, and I actually wrote about this not that long ago. The reason why that's important is because who you are as a leader is not, you know, what you think you are as a leader. It is not. So Lieutenant Colonel Josh Powers, you know, and you know, a couple of awards that I have and the things that I'm proud of. I'm proud of being a rifle company commander in combat in Afghanistan. You know, I'm proud of being a Brigade S3. And there's snapshots and moments that I think about. That's not me as a leader. That's not it. It doesn't equate to who I am as a leader. Who I am as a leader is these little snapshots and interactions that I have with human beings every day. From when I come on to post and the gate guard salutes and I return to salute, him or her will look him in the eye and say thank you, or you know, or if I don't because I'm having a crappy morning, to the meeting that I'm running and the interactions that I have. And so that is who I am. And it is not what I think that it is. And if I am not setting the proper example everywhere I go and everything I do, then the summation of who I am is it doesn't match. The audio and the video doesn't match. So you got to do it, and you got to do it all the time, especially when you're an old ass lieutenant colonel and you're walking around, and even though you don't think you're old or you don't think people are watching, you're like, I'm just the same guy I was as a captain. Like if I'm a PFC at Fort Benning, Georgia down the road, and I'm in processing 2 or whatever, people are watching. They're watching what you do, what you say, how you interact, and that is formative in people's experience. Got to do it.
I agree with you. The only way a leader should be leading is through their example. And in terms of being a soldier or a member of this warrior class, and you know, this week there was a fire on the Bonham, you know, the Bonham Richard ship, and to see those sailors in their firefighting gear, you know, the number one thing every sailor has to do is be able to fight fires, and to see them with their firefighting gear going in there and winning and defeating that fire, saving lives and everything. And I think the only way you can lead as a leader is by example. And, you know, if you can't fight and win, I don't care who you are, then you shouldn't be serving. And I used to get criticized all the time as the SEAC, because I would get criticized because people would say, me doing PT like that I was showing off. I'm not showing off. I'm showing out what I expect every individual below me to be able to do. And that means all 3 million active Guard and Reserve soldiers, sailors, airmen, Marines, and Coast Guard. And I will tell you, when Secretary Mattis, you know, we were preparing for a North Korea scenario, and Secretary Mattis wanted to know the readiness of the force, and we had a 17% non-deployable rate. And he came to me and said, Troxell, get the word out, no more fatties, all right? We are going to have this ready, this lethal force. And if Joe Dunford, the chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff, who at 64 years old was running 4-hour marathons, and John Wayne Troxell, a little bit younger than him, 56 years old, if I wasn't out doing PME hard or anything like that, then I would be a hypocrite to every leader below me. And if, as a leader, I don't care how far you get in the military, if you're not willing to share in the hardships of the men and women that are in your span of control, then you're not a leader, okay? You're just a manager at that time. And so it is imperative that we do the Iron Mike. And the Iron Mike is follow me, and I'll show you what everything right is, and I'll keep you from doing anything that is wrong. And I will get you to the top of this hill, and we will fight, win, and talk shit about it when we get done as a team. All right. I think it's the only way to do it.
Yeah. I think I love both of those. And I think for, for somebody that's a little more senior, we'll say on the outside, outside in the military is there comes a time where, while you're active and you're leading by, but you're doing all of those things. Because you're also resolute in where you're at, your mission, your peers, your community, the folks that you have to look after. But when you get out, you don't have all those in place all the time. You don't necessarily have, your purpose changes, right? And this is where that agile leadership comes in, which I would love to follow up with you on, Josh, and contribute where you feel necessary. But the thing is that is being agile, but also is passion, right? For me, my experience, what's allowed me to be where I'm at, and for with the community to say what they say of me to me is that, dude, you're passionate, you're bringing it, you're doing this, and it took me a while to find what that was, and I wish that along the way that there was probably some tools on how I could find and identify and achieve that. Thankfully, been able to be in a position of that. But I think just as leaders, genuinely, we're passionate about people, passionate about leading. We're passionate about taking care of others, and we are passionate about setting that example for others to follow, right? So that would be my suggestion: is when you're out, look at that next, how you can set that example. What lights you up? What makes you want to open your eyes and run with your hair on fire, towards something. And if you don't have that, then identifying that takes sometimes patience, but I promise it's out there. John, what do you think?
We're gonna get some rapid fire in, Ron.
I think so, brother. I think it's time to light them up by fire hose or minigun, whichever way you like it. Is how you're gonna take it, Josh. And I think
Josh. So we're getting down toward the end of our show here. So we're gonna get after some stuff that is near and dear to you. So, you're the first active duty officer that we've had on the Ron and John show. So, and we didn't realize that. We had Griff, former field artillery officer, fire supporter, former Ranger and everything. But having you on here as our first active duty guy, now you're in the audience with guys like Kay Wright, the Chief Master Sergeant of the Air Force, Scott Stalker from Cybercom, and folks like that. But I got to ask you, you were a second lieutenant at one time. Okay, you didn't get meritoriously promoted to first lieutenant at VMI when you got commissioned, right? You were a second lieutenant.
Yep.
Okay, and probably made mistakes like most second lieutenants.
Just a few.
So, did you ever have an NCO send you out looking for a box of grid squares?
So I was
or anything
lucky.
Like that.
I'm trying to think back. I think I was very lucky that the majority of those were things that I learned about when I was still at VMI, when I was a cadet. People like who had been around or had been in the Guard or whatever knew about them. Now I remember distinctly one time as a second lieutenant, so this isn't quite on there, but it's close. Rolling up the hot onto a target and getting yanked back by my vest out of the stack by an NCO who said, so go talk on the radio. I'm like, oh, oops. So that did happen.
Oh, awesome. Man. I'm going to pull that up, but actually I just saw a meme yesterday about that specific thing, about the PL being yanked out the stack. So while I need to have another question though. So I heard earlier, right, that you were an aide de camp, right?
Yes.
Now,
how we met.
And now, to our audience who doesn't know what an aide de camp is, because that's just, to me, that's just some fancy shit for a captain running around doing a bunch of shit, right? I mean,
right.
No. So okay. So that being the case. What is you? And I'm gonna let you. It'd be your choice. What is the shittiest story, or most interesting story? Not naming any names.
Yeah.
That you've had to do, or embarrassing.
Yeah.
As an aide de camp.
So,
I love the far right look. I love that. I love the concentration of where this is headed.
Well, so I was so lucky in this position because I worked for such a great human being. And I have heard all kinds of horror stories from other dudes and gals who did the same type of a job. And so the guy that I worked for, I'll tell the story in a minute, but the guy that I worked for was great. His name is General Retired Bob Brown. He is a fantastic human being. And he treated me like a son almost, and he taught me, and he never asked me to do anything that was demeaning or, things that you hear other guys that have bad experiences. I never had that. Now, so I had gone from being a rifle company commander in Afghanistan, and I was on top of the world, and I was proud, and I was full. You guys know who I'm talking about. This was me, just a few years ago in 2010. And I'm proud and all this. I teach captains the captain's career course, then I get yanked out to do this job as an aide. So I remember the first day that I'm in the job. They're interviewing General Brown for a show with ESPN that they're doing about Coach K. Coach K was his basketball coach at West Point. So I go from the top of the mountain, rifle company commander in Afghanistan, and they're like, "Hey, can you hold the cue cards for General Brown?" And I'm like, "Okay." So I'm in front of the camera holding the cue cards, literally, and they're like, "You got to get lower." And so I'm like getting lower, and they're like, "Get lower." And I'm like laying on the floor holding this cue card, and I'm like, man, I went from the top of the top to laying on the floor with a cue card. But I'll say this honestly, is that I would do anything for that guy, for General Brown, because of the leadership that he taught me and the perspective that he taught me. John Wayne Troxell knows exactly what I'm talking about as well. He's just a great human being.
Awesome.
Now, I will say this about aide de camps. Okay. They carry these heavy ass rucksacks, my last trip overseas, the aide de camp for General Milley was a Navy SEAL, and that dude had 600 coins in his dang rucksack. And I used to see Josh all the time for General Brown carrying these coins around and everything. But he's exactly right about Bob Brown as a leader and a person. But the other thing I know about aide de camps, and I've had some great ones, Dave Voorhees, that was an aide de camp with General Staff before you, Kendall Clark, who just left Brigade Command. If you do the duties of an aide de camp, you generally got your shit together. Now, it may suck while you're doing it because you're holding cue cards or you're running coffee and coins and everything. But you do those kind of duties, great things happen to you down the road. And, and Josh is one of those guys right there. So I got another question for you here. Let's talk PME hard now. Hypothetical situation.
Okay.
I live in Lakewood, Washington now. And all of a sudden, from 9 years ago, the garrison, hypothetical question, and the city of Lakewood are going to bring a lawsuit against me for about $50,000 worth of damage to a street and a parade field. Would you come up on the net and say that you were complicit in those activities, or would you be silent?
Asking for a friend.
Asking for a friend.
You'd have to be more specific about the activities that you're. I'm not. My memory comes in and out.
That street out there in front of General Brown and my house. That we destroyed with a 200-pound chain, and the grass we tore up by slinging rocks and leaving rocks on it and everything, and out there and everything. And the garrison commander came to me one day and said, "Hey, you're fucking my shit up, dude." Tommy Britton comes to me, "You're fucking my shit up, dude. Come on, man, help me out here," and everything, And then I got word 2 years after I left that they finally repaired the cement out there after the chain put it on a beating. So I just want to make sure you had my back if they tried to come at me for some kind of
I'm sorry,
charges.
I don't remember any field. I'm not quite sure. Truthfully, I'm not quite sure.
Yeah, you're doing it right. I'm not aware of any field. Are you aware of any field? I don't know what you're talking about.
There's lots of fields.
Yeah.
Well, I don't have I know we're getting close here, but I found what I was looking for. Let me see if I can pop this thing up so you can see it here. It says, No one. And it says the PL after being told to get the fuck out of the stack, right? Okay. Here, let me pop the audio here for you.
It is my turn. The game. Get me out. It's my turn. It is your turn. It is my turn. Get me out. It's my turn. It is your turn.
Hopefully that wasn't you.
Yeah, it's pretty much. You know, I think there's a piece to it that is, you know, there's a lot of not glamorous stuff that you do as an officer. Like when everybody else gets to go kick the door in and, you know, enter and clear, and you're out hanging out by a truck talking on the radio, or when everybody else is, you know, is back, you know, cleaning their weapons, and you've got yours in your lap taken apart, and you're making a little you know, a slide or whatever, but it's you know, it's all important, right? And it all is a part of the puzzle, and that's what I'm trying to bring around. Even, you know, now, even as I continue to grow up just a little bit, I'm about the same age as I was when I was a second lieutenant, roughly. But it's still like what you do is important if you can find the value in it. You just got to go looking for it, and that's I think is the key to continuing to be successful. And like you kept saying, Ron, continue to be passionate about what you do.
That's awesome, man.
Hey, Josh, thanks for being on the show today, brother. You are, you know, you're a great leader, but most important to me, it was great working with you for, you know, the 15 months that we worked together with General Brown, especially in places like Australia and everywhere else we went and stuff like that.
Yep.
But thank you so much for your leadership. Thank you for serving our country, and thank you for giving back by, you know, starting the Field Grade Leader, passing it on so that it has legs and will continue in what you're doing with the Agile Leader. And we'd love to bring you back at a certain point once the Agile Leader's kicking ass and everything, and hear how that's going the next time.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you.
All right.
Yeah, we'd love to have you, man. It's you know, just real quick in closing for the show out here for everybody out there. First, obviously, thank you everyone for attending another fabulous Ron and John show brought to you by Veterans Lending Group. If there's anything that we can help with you on your refinance or your PCS or new home purchase, just remember that we are licensed in all 50 states. We can PCS, ETS, and retire wherever it is that you go. And be sure to take a look at our VA Home Loan Bootcamp series. We'll give you all the good stuff and not the fluff. And we give you a path to home ownership using your VA home loan benefit. And with that, Josh, if you could just let our audience know, you know, first of all, it was a pleasure having you on here, man, as our first active duty officer. But you know, I mean, you showed, in my opinion, a lot of the traits and quality traits that we look for in a leader, that anyone should. I mean, you got humility, you got compassion, passion, you know, all in there. It's kind of a rare thing to see. I would say this side, right? On the flip side of that, I think so many people see just the uniform and just the brass and stuff like that. But it was really awesome, really getting to know you as a person, man, and really seeing that, you know, that you are truly authentic and as a leader should be. So, you know, thanks for coming on the show. And I'm just going to switch it up here a little bit and let you give the closing remarks to our audience on what you'd like to say for that final piece before John and I do the send off.
Okay, well shoot. Okay, I'll go quick then. Hey, so number one, and I've said this one a couple times, check in on your people. If you're in the military, if you're not, wherever you are, stupid you know who keeps popping up that I won't mention her name. That's the 5th time, my digital assistant. Check on your people, right? So there's a lot of folks that are struggling mentally, etc. Check in on your people. That's an important one that I think we've all got to do. Number 2, for anybody out there that's thinking about being a leader, listen to your people. Listen, right? Just listen and take it into perspective. And then the last one that I'll give you is just in the weird times that we're in right now, social media and, you know, all the craziness that's going on out there in the world, is to listen to each other. And just like if you're in the United States Army, even if you're not, treat each other with dignity and respect. You're probably not right about everything that's in your head, and what you read in your social media feed isn't either. So just take a minute and listen, try to appreciate each other's perspective. You know, I just came from Hawaii, driving around here in Georgia. It's crazy. People are honking at me and I'm going 25 miles an hour. Hey, they probably got somewhere to go. I move out of the way. I drop a shaka, but I'm probably not right. I'm sorry. You know, I cut you off. Maybe I didn't. It doesn't matter. But everybody just got to chill out for a little bit and let's get to a place where we can listen and think together. And that's it, guys. Thanks so much for having me.
Thanks, Josh. Hey, and I know with the Soldier Lethality Task Force, you're going to find yourself probably out at Joint Base Lewis McChord sooner or later. So 3 things you have to do when you come out here: PME hard session, karaoke, and moonshine.
Got it.
And not necessarily in that order.
Yeah, not necessarily in that order. All right, brother. Take care, Josh. Thanks.
All right.
Take
Thanks,
care,
guys.
Josh.
Appreciate it.
All right. Thanks, everybody. We'll see y'all next week.
See y'all next week. Hooah.